AI is coming for your job right now. Entire industries are being decimated by the AI machine. Jobs being wiped as human workers are replaced by automated algorithms that can do the same tasks faster, more efficiently, and, more importantly, cheaper. We've already seen it in finance, in healthcare, in customer service, logistics, and manufacturing. One by one, AI is taking over the work that millions of people thought was untouchable. But one profession seemed immune to the takeover: law. Or at least that's what the lawyers thought. Since the 1960s, legal firms have relied on the billable hour. Companies charged their clients not on a case-by-case basis, but on an hour-by-hour basis. Clients not only paid for the firm's expertise, but for the time invested, poring over contracts, drafting documents, digging through specific files or legal precedents. All takes time. Each hour was recorded, multiplied by a fixed rate, and then billed to the client, who then happily paid, believing that every second of the firm's time was indispensable. And that's why the legal industry became so valuable. It's why the biggest firms were able to rake in ridiculous amounts of revenue year over year. The public bought into the illusion that the finest legal minds were working tirelessly on their cases. Behind the scenes, it was a different story. The illusion was smoke and mirrors. Those at the top often relegated many of their most time-consuming tasks to junior associates. These entry-level employees still received sizable salaries, but they brought in more money to the firm overall through numerous billable hours that they put in each week. The legal field functioned like a pyramid. At the top were the most elite, experienced partners and firm owners. They were the faces of their firms, and they spent much of their time liaising with clients and cultivating relationships. At the bottom of the pyramid, propping up everything else, were the juniors. The people doing the hard work, grinding through tedious tasks, day in and day out. Firms saw a simple path to success: hire more juniors. More bodies meant more billable hours charged to clients, and that meant more money flowing into the firm and to the pockets of its partners. It was a successful and lucrative system, one that lasted decades, even as the legal world evolved. Lawyers got access to technology that could speed certain processes, but large parts of their work were still entirely reliant on someone looking over documents and textbooks. And then came AI, and the whole pyramid began to crumble. Across the legal sphere, partners are making the kinds of decisions that wouldn't have seemed logical just a few years ago. Graduates are finding it harder to get work as firms abandon the age-old "just keep hiring" approach that served them so well before. Clifford Chance, one of the world's largest law firms, has made dozens of roles redundant. PwC, another giant, has openly stated that the rise of AI will lead to fewer workers being hired. Whole categories of legal work are now being taken over, automated, and optimized by AI. An industry built on the bedrock of every hour is immensely valuable is now having to wake up to a new reality, one in which every hour of work can be condensed into a couple of clicks and an algorithm. Partners have seen what AI can do, and it's left them with a dilemma. Do they keep hiring new junior recruits? Or do they embrace AI and let the technology take over the grunt work? The answer is obvious. A first-year associate at a major law firm today will command an approximate base salary of around $235,000. That is not including things like bonuses, healthcare, and other costs related to office space, equipment. Some firms cover some of the costs related to junior employees' postgraduate education, too. For years, the price tag didn't actually matter as far as the firm's bottom line was concerned. Even if it spent $250,000 on a junior associate salary, that same employee would bring in several times that amount in billable hours. They were self-contained and highly profitable factories, churning through reams of work and producing far more money than they cost to run. Now firms can upgrade to a factory that is 1,000 times faster, able to operate around the clock, and, more importantly, cheaper to run. A junior associate costs $235,000. A ChatGPT Plus subscription costs $20. The difference is too vast for anyone to ignore. Why would any firm worth its salt bother itself with sourcing talent, hiring junior associates, paying for their education, training them up, allocating office space to them, and then paying them six-figure salaries when they could just get AI to do it all for them for a tiny fraction of the cost? Even with laser focus and a decent work rate, people can only process so much information at a time. The average worker will need to spend around 2 minutes on every page. That is several hours of work for a 100-page document. AI, meanwhile, is capable of reviewing 1,000 contracts in just a few hours. It is a 75% reduction in time. It can operate infinitely faster than entire teams of legal experts, without the mistakes that overworked lawyers might make. It only takes one momentary lapse from a junior to miss something important or to make a mistake that ends up costing the firm time and money. AI doesn't have that problem. But it doesn't mean that lawyers don't matter. The ones at the top are still needed. Their unique abilities and experience are still as valuable as ever. But the work of the underlings, the repetitive labor that forms the foundations on which everything else sits, is no longer required. It's easy to see then why so many legal firms see no other option but to invest in AI and ease off on the number of entry-level positions. This isn't something that law firms and partners opt into or decide on. It's something that's being forced upon them. They have to go with the flow and adapt to the new legal order if they want to survive. The billable hour is changing. They can't keep charging clients hundreds of dollars an hour for tasks that a computer can complete in seconds for fractions of a single cent. Clients recognize the new reality too. There are already reports of them refusing to pay for the likes of foundational legal research and document reviews. As one business litigation firm owner from California states, the fact is that lawyers charge clients for a lot of tasks that can be better and more efficiently handled through automation or AI. As clients realize this, they will refuse to pay lawyers to perform tasks that a computer could easily handle for almost nothing. Legal firms have lost a significant source of revenue, but they have discovered a tool that can save them a lot of time and money. The entire playbook of the legal field is being rewritten before our eyes. The people at the top are sacrificing the people at the bottom to not only keep their jobs but to become even more powerful. The people at the peak of the pyramid are somehow set to become even richer out of all this. That is despite the fact that their firms can no longer charge clients for countless hours of paperwork. They don't need to deal with the overhead, the cost, or the burdens involved with hiring and managing associate workers. These apex predator legal professionals can now reach unprecedented peaks of productivity. A single elite-level partner can now carry out an entire firm's worth of work quicker and easier than they ever imagined. They can hoard every single piece of profit they generate in the process, since none of it needs to trickle down to those lower down the ladder. But while the predators prosper, everyone else suffers. The people in the middle and down at the lower ends of the legal firms are about to see their paths of progression extinguished overnight. The lawyers who just want to build their careers and take on the tedious but necessary aspects of legal work are being forced out of the industry. There is no safety net to catch them. In order to cover up the sheer brutality of this maneuver, the legal industry has created a sort of smokescreen. A new career path has been hastily pieced together: the legal engineer. It sounds intriguing at first, prestigious even. A post that combines legal work with technological excellence, a legal profession for the AI era. People are already attempting to build hype and excitement around this new job. They're selling students on the idea of some sort of hybrid career where they can explore new technologies while pursuing their passions for justice. The numbers behind the legal engineer role seem equally optimistic. Data shows that AI adoption among legal firms has jumped from 19% to 79% between 2023 and 2024 alone. The job market for legal engineers exploded in a similarly broad style. Dig deeper, and evidence also suggests that the majority of so-called engineers are placed into sales and customer success departments of legal technology vendors. These aren't lawyers. They barely even qualify for the category of legal professionals. They're salesmen in suits, the law industry equivalent of someone who used to be or wanted to become a doctor, but instead ended up as a pharmaceutical rep. Those roles are focused entirely around software implementation. They exist to accelerate the automation of the legal industry. The entire career is a modern-day Trojan horse. People who would have dedicated their lives to courtroom cases and the justice system are being funneled into positions that undermine their ambitions. They're being tricked into playing leading roles in the destruction of the very industry that means so much to them. And those at the top know exactly what they're doing. They realize that the days of junior associates climbing up the corporate ladder are done. But they can't just announce that. They can't say they're freezing all hires and abandoning young talent entirely. So, they make up a new role. They claim it's the perfect path for aspiring legal professionals to follow, and they outsource the dirty work to the next generation. They snatch up the best and the brightest graduates and shepherd them into vendor-side roles, promising it'll all work out in the end, but it won't. These young professionals are being given made-up titles like solutions consultant and legal technologist. They're being tasked with selling AI solutions to the firms that might have hired and trained them. They're being brainwashed into dismantling the very ladder that they were supposed to climb. It is a dark and seedy scheme. The worst part of all this is that even these engineers aren't immune to the inevitable collapse. Their Trojan horse will go up in flames just like every other entry-level role once AI has been integrated into the majority of firms. Then, the services of legal engineers are no longer needed, and that may happen sooner than people realize. AI isn't just spreading like wildfire across the legal landscape, it's also getting smarter by the day, especially when it comes to reading and analyzing language. While it's a complex form of it, law at its core is language. It's all about words, rules, patterns, and terms. The exact things AI is able to learn quickly. For centuries, the complexity of legal texts meant that they could only be successfully parsed by people who dedicated themselves to the field. The people who spent years learning legal language and studying the intricacies of contracts and agreements. AI models don't need to do that. To them, a 100-page legal draft is simply a collection of data points that can be extrapolated, analyzed, and understood in the time it takes a person to blink their eyes. And they didn't even need years of training and development to reach this point. By 2023, months after ChatGPT's public release, GPT-4 passed the Uniform Bar Exam. And it passed with flying colors. It exceeded the average score of real legal graduates. By 2025, AI had gone further. OpenAI's O3 model earned A+ to B grades on 8 finals from the University of Maryland. It took time for the legal profession and the wider world to actually realize, but the truth is that from the moment AI came into existence, the future of the sector was already determined. Junior associates were doomed, and high-profile partners would abandon their entry-level employees in favor of cheap generative subscriptions. But the problem with their approach is that it's only focused on the short term. Because if firms stop hiring junior associates, how will the next generation of senior partners ever rise up? If young pros aren't spending their formative years training under senior mentors, then who is going to be handling boardroom negotiations in 10, 20, or 30 years from now? The top partners today don't have an answer for that. Even worse, they don't care about finding one. Because they're still making money, more money than ever, and since many of them will retire before the big problems actually appear, why would they care? Why would they mind that an estimated 44% of all legal tasks can now be fully automated by commercially available AI-powered software? They wouldn't, but they should. Everyone should. Because when 44% of all legal tasks are being done by AI, that means 44% of a $1 trillion marketplace is gone. Around $500 billion worth of annual corporate expenditure will leave law firms and flow into the software industry. The numbers only get uglier from there. When a law firm transitions from a human-oriented workflow that can be billed at several $100s per hour to instant automated pipelines, the cost to execute many tasks falls dramatically. Once the AI takeover is complete, firms will receive less money for almost half of all legal tasks. That's unsustainable. Not for those at the very top, of course. They will continue to take charge in cases of courtroom litigation and corporate contract signings. But for absolutely everyone else below them, the future is grim. For thousands of middle and entry-level legal professionals, the system is broken. It's being dismantled by those that are supposed to protect it. And nothing can stop the process now. So, will AI replace lawyers? Not entirely. The profession will always call for a certain level of human judgment. People will continue to represent their clients, whether it be in courtrooms or boardroom negotiations. But AI will and already is changing the industry forever, not just in terms of improving efficiency and optimizing workflows, but in wiping out entire careers. And they'll never be seen again. Whether we like it or not, the AI revolution is here. But what other careers are in the firing line? Watch Top 20 Jobs AI Will Replace to find out, or click on this video.